The first time my husband told me I was lucky he married me, I smiled. The second time, I believed him. By the 100th time, I had forgotten who I was. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that you slowly disappear inside the relationship, then stay with me. Because this story is about betrayal, pride, and the day a man discovered that the quietest woman in the room was the strongest person he had ever met. My name is Amara. I was born in Enugu, but grew up in Surulere, Lagos. My father was a civil servant. My mother sold fabrics in Balagan Market. We weren't rich, but we never lacked food or love. From childhood, my mother had only one lesson: never depend on anybody completely. Even if your husband is a billionaire, make sure your own hand can still feed you. At that time I used to laugh. "Mummy, when I marry a rich man, why will I stress myself?" She would simply shake her head. "My daughter, life teaches every woman differently." I didn't understand until years later. After university, I got a job in a logistics company on Victoria Island. The salary wasn't fantastic, but it was enough to rent a small apartment in Yaba and help my parents. That was where I met Tunde. He worked in another company on the same street. Every morning we bought breakfast from the same Akara woman. One morning the woman mistakenly gave him my tea. "I think destiny has started sharing our breakfast." I rolled my eyes. "Please return my tea." He smiled. "If I return it, can I at least buy you another one tomorrow?" That was how everything started. Tunde was funny, confident, always smelling expensive even when he wasn't rich. He knew how to make everyone around him feel important. When we started dating, I thought God had answered my prayers. He remembered birthdays. He surprised me at work. He sent food to my office. He even traveled to Enugu to meet my parents without me asking. Everybody loved him. My mother liked him. My father respected him. Even my younger brother started calling him Brother T. One evening, while we were walking at Lekki Phase 1, he stopped beside the lagoon. He looked into my eyes. "Amara, build with me." I laughed. "Build what?" "Our future." 3 months later, we got engaged. A year after that, we got married. It wasn't a lavish wedding. We couldn't afford that. The reception was held in a modest event center in Surulere. Friends danced. Family members prayed. People said we looked perfect together. I believed them. The first 2 years of marriage were beautiful. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Lekki. Money wasn't plenty, but peace lived in our house. If there was only one piece of chicken, we'd cut it into 2. If NEPA took light, we'd sit outside and laugh under the moon. One day, we'll own a big house. One day we'll travel abroad. One day we'll have our own company. Every dream included the word we. Then, life changed. Tunde got promoted. His salary almost tripled. Suddenly we could afford things we never imagined. A newer car, better furniture, weekend getaways, designer clothes. People started calling us the couple that had made it. But money doesn't only change your lifestyle. Sometimes, it changes your character. You don't understand business. You women think emotionally. You should just focus on the house. At first I ignored them. Maybe work pressure. Maybe stress. Maybe I was overthinking. Then another promotion came. This time he became regional operations manager. Everything changed. The humble man I married slowly disappeared. In his place stood someone who constantly reminded everyone of his success. Every conversation became about money. Every argument ended with one sentence: "Who pays the bills here?" I still worked. I still contributed. But somehow, according to him, nothing I did mattered. One Saturday morning, I suggested investing some savings. He laughed. "You? What about me? You read motivational books, and now you think you're Warren Buffett?" He laughed alone. I forced a smile, but something inside me cracked. Not because he disagreed, because he mocked me. That night I called my mother. "Mummy, do people really change after marriage?" She became quiet. Then she answered softly, "People don't always change. Sometimes success only reveals who they really are." Those words refused to leave my head. Months passed. The insults became normal. He corrected how I spoke, how I dressed, how I cooked, how I laughed. One evening we attended a corporate dinner at Echo Hotel. I wore a beautiful emerald green gown. Before leaving home, I asked, "How do I look?" He looked at me from head to toe. "You'll do." Meanwhile, when another woman entered the hall, he whispered, "Now that's elegance." I pretended not to hear. On our way home, I cried quietly while looking through the window. He didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. The next morning, he apologized. He bought flowers, ordered breakfast, called me his queen. I forgave him, again. That became our cycle. Insult, apology, peace, repeat. Until one day, something happened that changed everything. My company announced restructuring. Half the staff were laid off, including me. I remember carrying the brown envelope to my car. My hands were shaking. I had worked there for almost 7 years. Just like that, it ended. When I got home, I hoped my husband would comfort me. Instead, he asked, "So, what now?" "I'll start applying," I said. He nodded absent-mindedly. "For now, just stay home." "I don't want to stay home forever," I replied. He shrugged. "We'll see." Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Finding another good job wasn't easy. Nigeria's economy wasn't smiling. Every interview ended with, "We'll get back to you." Nobody got back to me. Slowly, I became a full-time housewife. I cooked, cleaned, managed the home, supported my husband. At first, he appreciated it. Then appreciation became expectation. Eventually, expectation became entitlement. "If you're at home all day, why isn't dinner ready? Why are these clothes not ironed? What exactly do you do with your time?" Every sentence cut deeper than the last. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind him that I once had dreams too. But I stayed quiet, because I believed marriage required patience. One afternoon, I met my old colleague, Chioma, at ShopRite in Ikeja. She looked shocked. "Amara, you're looking different." I laughed. "Marriage." She looked into my eyes. "No, this isn't marriage. You're tired." I quickly changed the topic. Before leaving, she held my hand. "If you ever need help, call me." I never imagined I actually would. A few weeks later, Tunde came home unusually excited. "We're hosting some executives on Friday." "Okay, I want everything perfect." "It will be. And please, don't embarrass me." I froze. "What do you mean?" "You know, just don't talk too much." I stared at him. He wasn't joking. "I've noticed you sometimes say unnecessary things." I couldn't believe my ears. "I'm your wife." "I know. So why should I be afraid of talking?" "Just leave business conversations to people who understand them." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while the man beside me snored peacefully. For the first time since our wedding, I asked myself a question I had been too afraid to ask. Was I still his wife? Or had I become nothing more than a decoration in his perfect life? And deep inside, a quiet voice whispered something I wasn't yet ready to hear. This marriage was standing on borrowed time. Friday arrived faster than Amara expected. From 6 o'clock that morning, she was already on her feet. She scrubbed every corner of the house until the tiles reflected the morning sunlight. She arranged fresh flowers on the dining table, polished the glass center table, and prepared enough food to feed twice the number of invited guests. Jollof rice, fried rice, peppered turkey, grilled fish, moi moi, salad, fresh juice. Everything had to be perfect. Not because she wanted to impress strangers, but because she wanted her husband to be proud of her. Around 4 in the afternoon, Tunde walked into the kitchen. He looked around silently. Good. Just one word. No thank you. No smile. No appreciation. Amara forced herself to smile. I'm almost done. He adjusted his expensive wristwatch. They'll be here by 7. I know. And remember what I told you. She looked at him. I remember. Good. Those words stayed with her all evening. Don't embarrass me. By 7:30, the guests began to arrive. 3 senior executives, their wives, a foreign investor, and one elegant woman in a red dress who introduced herself as Sandra. I'm Tunde's project consultant. She smiled a little too warmly. Amara noticed the way Tunde immediately collected her handbag. The way they exchanged glances. The way Sandra laughed at jokes that weren't even funny. Something about it felt familiar. Not familiar because she knew Sandra. Familiar because a woman's intuition rarely lies. Still, she ignored the feeling. She welcomed everyone politely and continued serving drinks. As the evening progressed, the men gathered around the dining table, discussing contracts worth billions of naira. Amara stayed mostly in the kitchen. Every now and then, she heard laughter from the dining room. Then she heard Tunde's voice. "My wife doesn't really understand these things." Someone asked, "So what does she do?" There was a brief silence. Then Tunde answered, "She's at home now, taking care of the house." The way he said it, as if she had achieved nothing in life. As if 7 years of professional experience had disappeared overnight. Amara stood behind the kitchen wall, holding a serving tray. Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to walk away. But she swallowed the pain and carried the tray into the dining room. The conversation stopped briefly. Sandra smiled. "The food is amazing. Thank you." Sandra looked around. "Tunde is lucky." Amara smiled politely. "I believe we are both lucky." Sandra laughed softly. "I like your confidence." For a brief second, Amara noticed an uncomfortable expression on Tunde's face. Almost like he didn't want the two women talking. Later that night, after everyone had eaten, Sandra accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, left her phone on the sofa. Tunde picked it up. "I'll take it downstairs." "I can go," Amara offered. "No," his response came too quickly. He cleared his throat. "I mean, she's probably waiting outside already." Without another word, he rushed downstairs. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Finally, he returned. "I couldn't find her immediately." Amara simply nodded. But another tiny seed of doubt had been planted. The following weeks became stranger. Tunde suddenly started working late almost every evening. There are new projects, emergency meetings, client dinners, business trips. Every excuse sounded believable. But the frequency wasn't. One Saturday afternoon, while folding laundry, Amara noticed that one of Tunde's shirts carried a perfume she had never used. It wasn't subtle. It was strong, sweet, expensive. She held the shirt close. Definitely not hers. When Tunde returned home that evening, she asked calmly, "Did someone spray perfume on you at work?" He barely looked at her. "What kind of question is that?" "I'm just asking. You've been sitting at home too long." "What does that mean?" "You have too much time to imagine nonsense." He walked into the bedroom, ending the conversation. That night, Amara cried in silence again. Not because of the perfume. Because every question now became an insult. Every concern became evidence that she was insecure. A few days later, Kioma called. "I've been trying to reach you." "I've just been busy." "Busy doing what?" "Being unemployed." Chioma became serious. "Listen, a friend of mine is starting a digital marketing agency. I don't know anything about digital marketing. You can learn." "I'm too old." "You are 33. "I'm tired." "No," Chioma interrupted. "You've only forgotten who you are." Those words echoed in Amara's mind long after the call ended. That evening she searched online. Free courses, business management, digital marketing, customer relations, project management. She enrolled quietly, without telling anyone. Every night, after Tunde slept, she studied. 1 hour, sometimes 2, sometimes until 3 in the morning. She took notes, watched tutorials, completed assignments. Little by little, she started feeling alive again. One afternoon, while using Tunde's laptop to print a document, a message notification appeared. "Sandra. Thank you for yesterday. I can't stop smiling." Amara froze. Her heartbeat became louder than the room itself. She stared at the screen. Another message appeared. "Sandra, I miss you already." Her hands trembled. She wanted to open the conversation. She wanted answers. Before she could touch anything, the laptop locked automatically. She sat there for several minutes, unable to move, unable to breathe properly. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe she was misunderstanding everything. Maybe, or maybe, the nightmare she had refused to imagine was already happening. That evening she cooked as usual. She smiled as usual. She served dinner as usual. Across the table sat the man she had loved for nearly 10 years. He talked about work. She barely heard a word. She kept wondering, how many lies had he told her? How long had Sandra been in the picture? Was this emotional or physical? After dinner, Tunde stood up. I'm traveling to Abuja tomorrow. For how long? 3 days. Business? Obviously. He walked into the bedroom. Amara remained seated at the dining table. The food on her plate had gone cold. The next morning, after Tunde left for the airport, Amara received an unexpected phone call. Hello? Good morning. Is this Mrs. Tunde Adewale? Yes. My name is Bisi. There was hesitation on the line. I don't know if I should be calling. Amara's heart skipped. What is it? I work at the hotel where your husband usually stays. Silence. I thought you deserved to know. Amara gripped the phone tightly. Your husband never checks in alone. The room suddenly felt smaller. She couldn't speak. He has been coming with the same woman for months. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. I am sorry. The call ended. Amara sat on the floor. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She simply stared into space. Everything suddenly made sense. The late nights, the perfume, the messages, Sandra, the humiliation, the distance, the lies. The marriage she had been trying so hard to save had already been abandoned by the man she was fighting for. But instead of breaking, something unexpected happened. For the first time in months, Amara's tears stopped. She slowly stood up, walked to the mirror, looked at the woman staring back at her. Her eyes were swollen, her shoulders were heavy, but somewhere beneath all the pain, there was strength. She whispered to herself, You cried enough. A long silence followed. Then she spoke again. No more. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to True Life Diaries, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next emotional story of betrayal, love, and unexpected justice. Now let's continue. Amara didn't know exactly what she was going to do next, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Tunde believed he was betraying a weak woman. He had no idea. He had picked the wrong woman to betray. Amara didn't confront Tunde immediately. That surprised even her. Months ago, she would have cried, begged, demanded explanations, and hoped love would somehow repair what lies had broken. But the woman staring back at her in the mirror that morning wasn't the same woman who had quietly accepted every insult. She had changed, not because she wanted revenge, because she finally understood something her mother had tried to teach her years ago. A woman who loses herself trying to keep a man will eventually lose both herself and the man. So she said nothing. When Tunde returned from Abuja, she welcomed him with the same calm smile. How was your trip? Tiring. I'll warm your food. Thanks. He looked at her carefully. You seem different. She smiled. I'm just learning not to worry too much. He nodded, almost relieved. Good, he thought. She's finally stopped asking questions. He had no idea. She had simply stopped believing his answers. That night, while Tunde slept, Amara sat in the sitting room with her laptop. She completed another online course. Then another. She updated her CV. She created a professional LinkedIn profile. She even registered a small business name she'd been dreaming about for years. A consulting service that would help small businesses improve customer relations and operations. It wasn't much. For the first time in months, she felt excitement instead of fear. Chioma noticed the change immediately. You sound happier. I've decided something. What? I'm done begging people to see my value. Chioma laughed. That's my friend. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. You don't need to know tomorrow. What do I need? You just need to keep moving. Over the next few weeks, Amara quietly rebuilt herself. She woke before sunrise, studied, applied for jobs, attended virtual seminars, networked with former colleagues. She didn't announce any of it. She simply worked. Meanwhile, Tunde barely noticed. his attention was elsewhere. More late meetings, more business trips, more mysterious phone calls taken on the balcony. Sometimes he smiled at his phone in a way he hadn't smiled at Amara in years. Oddly enough, it no longer broke her heart. It simply confirmed what she already knew. One afternoon, Chioma called with exciting news. "Remember the agency I told you about?" "Yes. They're expanding. So? They need someone to manage client experience." Amara hesitated. "I've been out of work for months. I already told them about you." "You did what?" "You have years of experience. Stop acting like you've forgotten everything." "When's the interview?" "Tomorrow." Amara looked around the quiet apartment. Tomorrow. For the first time in a long time, tomorrow felt like hope. The interview was held in a modest office in Lekki. She was nervous. Very nervous. The receptionist smiled warmly. "You'll be meeting 3 directors." Amara whispered a quick prayer. The interview lasted nearly an hour. They asked about difficult clients, leadership, conflict resolution, team management. For every question, Amara answered honestly, drawing from years of experience. As she stood to leave, one of the directors smiled. "You've been unemployed for several months." "Yes. How did you spend that time?" Instead of feeling embarrassed, she smiled. "I invested in learning." She showed them the certifications she'd earned. The directors exchanged impressed glances. One of them nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Attawell." 2 days later, her phone rang. "Congratulations." Her heart stopped. "We'd like to offer you the position." Amara covered her mouth to stop herself from crying. The salary wasn't as high as her old job. But it was enough. Enough to stand on her own feet again. Enough to remember who she was. She thanked them repeatedly before ending the call. For several minutes, she simply sat quietly. Then she called her mother. "Mummy? My daughter. I got the job." On the other end of the phone came joyful tears. "I knew God hadn't forgotten you." Amara decided not to tell Tunde immediately. Not out of spite. She wanted to settle into the role first. To prove, to herself more than anyone, that she could succeed again. She resumed work the following Monday. Every day she left home dressed professionally. Every evening she returned energized. She laughed more. She smiled more. She slept peacefully. Tunde noticed. "You've been busy lately." "I have." "Doing what?" "Working on myself." He shrugged. "As long as the house is still running." The words stung, but only briefly. She no longer needed his approval to measure her worth. 3 weeks later, her new manager called her into his office. "We've received excellent feedback from every client you've handled." "Thank you, sir. I think you'll fit well leading a larger account." "I'd love the opportunity." "You've earned it." As she walked back to her desk, Chioma grinned. "I told you." Amara laughed. "You did." For the first time in years, her confidence wasn't borrowed from anyone else. It belonged to her. She didn't yet know that while her life was quietly coming back together, Tunde's carefully built world had already begun to crack. Sandra had started asking difficult questions. Promises he'd made were catching up with him. Money was disappearing faster than it came in, and very soon, the lies he thought he could manage would begin to unravel. By the end of the month, Amara had become one of the most dependable people in the company. Clients specifically requested to work with her. Whenever there was a difficult customer, her manager would smile and say, "Give it to Amara. She knows how to calm people down." It wasn't magic. It was experience. Years of dealing with different personalities had taught her that respect could solve problems that shouting never would. One Friday afternoon, the managing director stopped by her desk. "Adewale." She stood up immediately. "Good afternoon, sir. I've been hearing good things about you." "Thank you, sir. I'll like to see you in my office on Monday." Her heart skipped. She wondered if she had made a mistake. The entire weekend, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Meanwhile, Tunde had problems of his own. The company where he worked had begun investigating irregularities in one of the major contracts under his supervision. Although he wasn't directly accused, management wanted explanations for several payments that couldn't be properly accounted for. The pressure was intense. Every day, his phone rang non-stop. He became short-tempered. He barely ate. He snapped at everyone. Sandra wasn't making things easier. She had grown tired of waiting. For almost a year, Tunde had promised that he would leave his wife. Every month there was a new excuse. She's going through a difficult time. This isn't the right moment. I'll do it soon. Sandra was done believing him. One evening, she met him at a restaurant in Victoria Island. I'm tired, Tunde. What do you mean? I'm tired of hiding. He looked around nervously. Please lower your voice. No. Several people turned to look at them. You told me you loved me. I do. Then why are you still living with your wife? It's complicated. Sandra laughed bitterly. You're the one making it complicated. She pushed her drink aside. I'm giving you 1 month. For what? Decide who you really want. She stood up and walked away. Tunde remained seated. For the first time, he realized he was losing control of everything. Monday morning arrived. Amara entered the managing director's office with mixed emotions. He welcomed her warmly. Relax, you're not in trouble. She smiled nervously. I've reviewed your performance. He slid a file across the table. You have exceeded every target. Thank you, sir. We're creating a new client relations department. She listened carefully. We need someone to lead it. Her eyes widened. Me? He smiled. You've earned it. She was speechless. The promotion came with a significant salary increase, company benefits, and a leadership position. As she left the office, she couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, she felt seen. Not because she was someone's wife, but because of her own ability. The first person she wanted to call was her mother. My daughter, Mummy. I can hear happiness in your voice. I got promoted. There was silence, then joyful laughter. I told you, God never wastes pain. That evening, Amara decided to share the news with Tunde. She prepared his favorite meal. When he arrived home, he looked exhausted. I have good news. He loosened his tie. What is it? I got promoted today. Instead of congratulating her, he frowned. Already? Yes. You've only been there a short time. They said they were impressed with my work. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Congratulations. That was all. No hug, no excitement, nothing. Later that night, she overheard him speaking on the balcony. This isn't a good time. I said I'll handle it. No, don't threaten me. His voice sounded desperate. When he came back inside, he noticed Amara looking at him. Who were you talking to? A client. She simply nodded. She didn't argue anymore. She had learned that liars often buried themselves with more lies. A week later, Tunde received another shocking blow. His company's internal audit had been completed. Although investigators found no evidence that he had stolen money, they concluded that he had approved several risky transactions without proper oversight. His annual bonus was suspended. He was removed from one of the company's biggest projects. It wasn't a dismissal, but it was a public embarrassment. The same colleagues who once admired him now whispered behind his back. For the first time in years, Tunde understood what it felt like to lose status. He returned home angry. Everything irritated him. The traffic, the weather, the food. This soup has too much pepper. Amara looked at him calmly. I made it the same way I always do. Well, today I don't like it. She quietly stood up. I'll warm something else. As she walked toward the kitchen, Tunde watched her. She wasn't arguing anymore. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging for peace. She seemed peaceful without him. That unsettled him more than any argument ever had. A few days later, Chioma invited Amara to a business networking event in Ikoyi. You need to meet more people. I've never liked networking. You don't have to like it. You just have to show up. The event was filled with entrepreneurs, executives, and investors. Amara almost turned back at the entrance. Then she remembered how far she had come. During one discussion, she shared an idea about improving customer retention for small businesses. Several people listened attentively. Afterward, an elderly businessman approached her. Young lady. Good evening, sir. I liked your presentation. She smiled politely. I think we should talk. He handed her his business card. You have a sharp mind. As he walked away, Chioma nudged her shoulder. You see? I almost didn't come. And you would have missed this opportunity. On her way home that evening, Amara sat quietly in the back seat of the ride-hailing car. She looked out the window at the bright lights of Lagos, the same city where she had once felt trapped. Now, it looked full of possibilities. She realized something important. For months, she had been waiting for Tunde to change, waiting for an apology, waiting for him to love her the way he once had. Life had almost passed her by, not anymore. She no longer wanted revenge. She wanted freedom. She wanted peace. She wanted a future that wasn't built on someone else's promises. What she didn't know was that destiny was already arranging the moment when every secret would come into the open. And when that day arrived, it wouldn't be Amara fighting to save the marriage. It would be Tunde, desperately trying to save everything he had taken for granted. For months, Tunde believed he was still in control. He thought Amara was the same woman who would cry quietly, forgive quickly, and accept whatever explanation he gave her. But he didn't realize something had changed. The woman he betrayed was no longer desperate to keep him. She had found herself again. And that was the one thing he could never take away. One Tuesday morning, Amara received an unexpected invitation. A major business partner wanted her team to handle a huge customer experience project. When she arrived at the meeting, she was surprised to see someone familiar. Tunde. He was representing his company. For a moment, both of them froze. Tunde looked at her differently, not like the unemployed wife he had looked down on. Not like the woman he thought needed him. He was looking at a confident professional sitting across the table. Amara? She smiled politely. Good morning, Mr. Adewale. The way she addressed him shocked him. Mr. Adewale, not Tunde, not my husband, not the man she once loved more than herself. During the meeting, she spoke confidently. She answered questions. She presented solutions. Everyone listened, even Tunde. For the first time, he saw the woman he had ignored. After the meeting, he followed her outside. You're doing well. Thank you. I didn't know you were into this kind of work. There are many things you don't know about me anymore. The statement hit him, because it was true. He had spent so much time chasing another woman that he stopped noticing his own wife. That evening, Tunde came home unusually quiet. Amara noticed. Everything okay? He looked at her. I saw you today. I know. You've changed. She continued arranging documents. People change. Why didn't you tell me about this job? She looked up. Would it have mattered? Then stopped. Because deep down he knew the answer. Meanwhile, Sandra was becoming impatient. The 1-month deadline she gave Tunde had passed. She called him. You made your choice. Please, Sandra. No. You kept promising me a future while living another life. It's not that simple. It was simple when you were lying to your wife. Those words hurt because they were true. Sandra ended the relationship. For the first time, Tunde lost both women he thought would always be available. A few days later, Amara received a message from an unknown number. The message contained screenshots, photos, conversations, evidence, everything. For a moment, she stared at the phone. Even though she already knew the truth, seeing it was different. Her hands shook. Not because she was surprised, because she finally accepted that the man she married had chosen to hurt her. That night, when Tunde came home, she was waiting. We need to talk. He immediately became defensive. About what? She placed the phone on the table. His face changed. Silence filled the room. Amara. How long? He looked away. How long have you been seeing her? He didn't answer. That was the answer. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice remained calm. I gave you years of my life. I made sacrifices for this family. I defended you when people questioned you. And this is what you gave me. Tunde lowered his head. I'm sorry. Those 2 words, the same words he had used many times. But this time they sounded different. Because now, Amara wasn't waiting for an apology. She was deciding her future. After that night, everything changed. Tunde expected Amara to fight. He expected tears, arguments, begging. Instead, she became peaceful. And that scared him. Because anger meant she still cared. Silence meant she was already letting go. Amara moved into another apartment. Not because she hated him, because she needed space to think. Her mother welcomed her home emotionally. "I told you one thing, my daughter." "What?" "Never allow anyone to make you forget your own worth." This time, Amara understood. Months passed. Her career continued growing. The small department she started managing became one of the company's biggest success stories. She was invited to speak at business events. People who once ignored her now wanted to learn from her. The woman who once sat at home wondering if her life was over was now building a future she never imagined. Tunde's life became completely different. His relationship with Sandra ended. His career suffered. His reputation changed. But the biggest loss wasn't money. It was losing the woman who stood beside him before success arrived. One evening, he visited Amara. "I miss you." She looked at him quietly. "I miss who you used to be." He swallowed. "I made mistakes." "Yes, you did. Can we fix this?" Amara looked outside the window. The old Amara would have jumped at the opportunity. But she was no longer that woman. "Tunde, forgiveness doesn't always mean returning." He looked hurt. "I still love you," she nodded. "And I loved you too." "Then why?" "Because love without respect destroys people." Those words stayed with him. A year later, Amara launched her own consulting company. Her family attended the opening ceremony. Her mother cried with happiness. Her father smiled proudly. Chioma hugged her tightly. "You remember when you thought your life was finished?" Amara laughed. "I was wrong." "What changed?" She looked around. "I stopped waiting for someone else to save me." Many people thought Amara won because Tunde lost. But that wasn't the real victory. Her victory was finding herself again. She learned that betrayal can break your heart, but it can also reveal your strength. Sometimes the person who walks away from you is actually making space for your greatest transformation. And sometimes, the person who thinks they destroyed you is the person who accidentally helped you discover who you were meant to become. Tunde thought he was betraying a weak woman. He thought Amara would always be there. He thought he could replace her. But he made one mistake. He picked the wrong woman to betray. Because Amara wasn't the woman who needed him to survive. She was the woman who survived without him. The end. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like, subscribe to True Life Diaries, and share your thoughts below. Would you forgive someone who betrayed you after everything you sacrificed for them?